Hi everyone, this is Daniel Crawford here, and I am so sorry it has been a month since I last talked with all of you. No, I haven't forgotten about this show. It's just been, I've been very busy with a bunch of other things over the past month, and I want to promise that I want to try and do this show at least once a month, but I'm thinking about a new approach, kind of like switching what I do with my podcast with what I do with this show, and you'll see what it's going to look like over the next few weeks. I'm going to try to do like an instant quick reaction on this show, starting with Raw. Raw, the April 5th edition, and of course all the way up through the predictions of WrestleMania. I want to try and offer, well, I'm even going to offer some predictions for TakeOver as well, because that will be Wednesday, starting Wednesday. So I want to offer some predictions, and it's just going to be a crazy week of wrestling. So let's just get to it here. So the last time I had a show was on March 8th, right before Raw that night, and it was, of course, almost immediately following Revolution, which happened on March 7th. As you may remember, I was not a big fan of Revolution. AEW has picked up their act a little bit since then, so let's get right into it. Best match of the month for me. So there were a lot of good matches over the course of March. By the month, I mean following Revolution. So through to April 2nd. So over that span of time, I believe that the best match of that entire period of time, call it the month if you will, was the Universal Championship match at Fastlane between Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns with Edge as the special enforcer. So many stories being told. The culmination is going to lead us to WrestleMania. Some people say that this is a useless pay-per-view. I understand why, but in this particular case, it was not. It helped to kind of push us in a major way toward WrestleMania and show us that Edge is not going to be the clear babyface of this match. The babyface is going to be Daniel Bryan. The clear heel is going to be Roman Reigns, the Universal Champion, and the sort of guy who's in the middle, the anti-hero, if you will be Edge. But he's obviously in the midst of this internal conflict, so definitely enjoying this. That was the best match of the month, if you will. Okay. So, best backstage person of the entire month. The reason why this usually obviously would be the best backstage moment of an entire week, but since I'm covering the entire month from March 8th through April 2nd, the best person who is meaning the most consistent person in the back who is consistently entertaining, consistently on point, and telling whatever story they're trying to tell was Riddle. I know obviously a lot of the stuff that he did in the back was absurd, overly stupid at times, but he's at least one person you can always count on with respect to entertaining you. And obviously, in that respect, R-Truth could be a close second, at least when it comes to most consistent, because R-Truth never fails to entertain me. But Riddle, in this case, I've enjoyed everything he's done in the back. Best backstage goes to Riddle. Best show of that period of time. So let's just run down this out of my piece of paper here where I got done jotting down everything with respect to all these shows. So we had a total of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 shows in that span of time from March 8th through April 2nd. And out of all those, let's just run down the ratings I gave for each one. Raw had a very good series of episodes. As a matter of fact, week 1 of this, March 8th, you had Raw, I gave it a 9.9. NXT from March 10th, 9.85. AEW, a 9.07. Kind of a weak episode, but better than the pay-per-view. And then a SmackDown from March 0.88. So obviously the second-rate show of the week, surprisingly, was SmackDown. Raw was the best show of the week, and this happened the second week too. You had Raw with a 9.92. Actually, no, they weren't the best show of the week, but they were very, very, very strong. Almost the best show of the week. NXT of March 17th, a 10. I gave a 10 rating to. Damn near perfect show. Well, pretty much a perfect show in my view. 9.93 I gave to AEW. Dynamite that week was very strong. It was a lot better than it was the previous few weeks, and especially better than the Revolution. I think they made up for a lot of things, and I was very much into that episode of Dynamite. The March 19th episode of SmackDown I gave a 9.972, so this was a much closer race. They were all very much within like a close spot, like range of each other. Excuse me, like a close knit spot with each other, where Like, it ranged from a 9.92 with Raw at the bottom of the barrel, not a bad show at all. AEW was next with 9.93, obviously edged out Raw in my view. Very close second to NXT was SmackDown, 9.97, and of course, obviously, NXT I gave a 10. Fastlane, I gave it a 10, and it was just a really good show. I don't care what anyone thought. I liked it. I thought every part of the show was on point, and WWE, whether it's NXT or the main roster, they very rarely have been putting on a bad pay-per-view. Like, when it comes to the pay-per-views, they've been delivering, I think, throughout this pandemic era. So Raw, the night after, on March 22nd, a 9.91, another strong show, another really good show overall. NXT, March 24th, 9.95, another really good show. AEW from March 24th, a 9.557. Granted, there were certain spots that were weak, but it wasn't a terrible show. It was just, okay. It was, obviously it was a little bit better than okay, because if you were to average this out to percent, it would be an A, to me, an A+. So, the only show that I've given AEW anything less than an A would be their pay-per-view, which I gave basically a B to. Obviously it was a B show for me, but at the same time, it was still a decent event for the most part. SmackDown for that week was, I gave it a 10 for March 26th, but the best show of that week, I think, was Fastlane. And for a number of reasons, like culmination of certain stories, catapulting us towards WrestleMania. It was just the best show of that week. Raw for March 29th, a 9.8. Another really good show, a strong show. Not as good as their previous 3 shows, but this past Raw, March 29th, I gave it a 9.8. It was still a good show. NXT, March 31st. This is kind of a first. I gave it a 10.1. Why would I give it a 10.1? It was a good show. Don't get me wrong. There were at least a couple weaker points. I put my notes elsewhere here, but there were a couple of weaker points in the show, like the whole Xia Li thing, which is not bad. It was just okay. I hate short matches that are too short. If it tells its proper story, then it won't be too bad of a rating for me. But thing is, squash matches, I'm just not a fan of them, and I understand their purpose, but they're also kind of annoying at the same time. Anyways, what made it a 10.1, what saved it from getting less than a 10, was the amazing video package that they did for Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly. I can't remember what the heck they call it, but that is like Target something. But either way, it was a really good video, and I marked out for it. So I gave it a 15, which is what averaged it up. So either way, NXT was the best show of that week, as you're probably going to figure that out. AEW was a better show than the previous week. March 31st, I give it a 9.79. Much stronger show than the previous week. Not much strong, but, better. And then SmackDown, April 2nd, a 9.93. Another really good episode of SmackDown. So SmackDown just is consistently above, I'd say consistently above 9.5. You can always guarantee, or even consistently above a 9.8, on average it seems, you can always count on it being a good show. But out of all those, considering two things, this is going to be a little bit confusing. I say the best show of that month-long period was Fastlane. I know what you're probably thinking. I gave Fastlane a 10, and I gave NXT from this week, March 31st, a 10.1. The reason why Fastlane edges out NXT, so NXT would be the second best show of the month, I guess you could say, or maybe even the NXT from March 17th, or the SmackDown from March 26th might be even edged out better, only because consistency. The Fastlane pay-per-view was more consistent. It was a consistently good show where it was a 10 all through. And I think that makes it the best show of that month period from March 8th through April 2nd. Okay, so best heel of the month. It's just, as has been the case more often than not, Roman Reigns. I can't see anyone overtaking him over the course of this month. And I know a lot of you may think, however many of you watch this, I never give anyone from AEW a best heel or whatever. That's not entirely true. I mean, I may not have been putting on the show, but there's been times where I thought Omega was a really good heel. Chris Jericho was obviously a really good heel. When he was champion, his championship run was my favorite championship run so far in AEW, but just because Jericho's really good at his job, but, Roman Reigns he's killing it. I think he is, at this point, the best heel in the business right now, and it's really hard to overtake his work at this moment. Fire story of this month period, continuing on this theme that you just heard, is Roman Reigns, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. Like, obviously, because of their match. A big part of it because of their match. Best match of that whole month. You also have the best event being Fastlane, and this is the fire story. It's because of them. They keep bringing this up for me, and I'm just so invested in the story. I cannot wait for this main event. It's the proper main event for night 2 of WrestleMania. So the top or new star of this month, LA Knight. I think he's been killing it. He's someone to watch because I see him on the main roster in the very near future. I could be wrong about Adam Cole being on the main roster by the end of this year, by the end of next year. But I think Adam Cole and LA Knight are going to be both going to the main roster in a very short period of time, along with Karrion Kross as well. Best promo giver of this time, because I don't want to just isolate one promo, but the best promo giver comes back to another 3-way tie: Edge, Roman, and Daniel Bryan. They've all been keeping us invested. I don't see how we can get away from how great this story has been. Favorite commentator of the whole month was Samoa Joe. I always like his commentary. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good commentators that are involved in this and the commentary of wrestling as a whole, at least for what I watch. But Samoa Joe, I think, is probably my favorite at this moment. So this month in wrestling history, a lot of things have been going on. So April 1st, 2001, we saw WrestleMania 17. And of course, just days before that, the infamous I Now Own WCW show of both Nitro and Raw, the last episode of Nitro. I would have isolated that, but I think everything, because it surrounded WrestleMania 17 and was the precursor to the Invasion storyline, which I know a lot of wrestling marks hate, but I loved the Invasion storyline. So, eat it. I don't care. Regardless, this month in wrestling history, WrestleMania 17, what is arguably the best WrestleMania of all time. And it's hard to argue with that because it was the culmination of the Attitude Era. So, with that, I thank you for watching. Please check out my website, DanielCrawford.org, for all my other projects and whatever that I'm involved in. And we will catch you next time.